The Dallas Cowboys are standing at a crossroads, and if you look closely, you can feel the shift happening beneath the surface. This is not just another offseason filled with routine roster churn. This is a recalibration of identity. After a 7-9-1 campaign that exposed cracks all over the defensive side of the ball, the franchise is confronting uncomfortable truths. The offense proved it can compete with anyone in the league. The defense, however, became a weekly liability. And now, with 2026 looming, the spotlight turns squarely toward how this team rebuilds the spine of its defense while preserving the explosive potential that still exists on the other side of the ball. Let's begin with the safety room, because that unit may undergo the most dramatic transformation of any position group on the roster. As things currently stand, the Cowboys have Malik Hooker, Elijah Clark, Zion Childress, Julius Woods, and Marquise Bell under contract. On paper, that sounds like depth. In reality, it feels like uncertainty. Hooker's contract makes him a logical cap casualty, especially with nearly $7 million in savings available through a pre-June 1 release designation. His play simply hasn't matched his price tag, and in a year where Dallas needs financial flexibility, sentiment cannot override production. This is where things get fascinating. The 2026 draft class at safety is loaded. Caleb Downs out of Ohio State headlines the group as a consensus top 5 overall prospect. His range, processing speed, and ball skills make him the type of player who can alter the geometry of a defense overnight. The question is not whether he is good enough for Dallas at pick 12. The question is whether positional value will push him down the board into their range. The NFL has consistently devalued safeties in the top 10, but elite ones still change games. If Downs is sitting there at 12, that becomes a franchise-defining decision. Behind him, Dylan Thiemann and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren represent legitimate first-round caliber talent. Thiemann's combine performance has scouts buzzing, and his ability to function in two high shells or rotate down into the box fits perfectly within Christian Parker's schematic philosophy. McNeil-Warren brings a different flavor, more physical, more downhill, but equally disruptive. The beauty for Dallas is that even if they miss on Downs, this class provides fallback options with starter upside. And it doesn't stop on day one. Zakee Wheatley, Genesis Smith, Bud Clark, Michael Toff, Bishop Fitzgerald, and VJ Payne all profile as players who can contribute early in a creative system. That matters because Parker's defense demands versatility. He wants interchangeable safeties who can disguise coverages, spin late, and attack passing lanes without sacrificing run support integrity. The Cowboys simply did not have enough of that flexibility last year. Free agency adds another layer to this conversation. Kobe Bryant headlines the market coming off a Super Bowl run in Seattle. Brian Cook, Cam Curl, and Jaquan Brisker offer starting-level production with varied skill sets. But perhaps the most intriguing name is Reed Blankenship. He knows Parker's system intimately from Philadelphia. He understands the communication demands. He has worn the green dye. He might not be the flashiest option, but he could be the connective tissue that stabilizes an entirely new secondary. If Dallas walks away from this offseason with 2 starting caliber safeties, the defense instantly looks different. The turnovers could rise. The explosive plays allowed could drop. The communication breakdowns that plagued them in 2025 could begin to fade. Now shift to linebacker, where Nakobe Dean emerges as one of the most compelling potential acquisitions. For years, the Cowboys have been cautious spenders in free agency. Jerry Jones has now signaled a philosophical pivot, even suggesting a willingness to borrow from future cap years. That is not a small statement. It is a declaration that the window is not closed. Dean embodies both risk and reward. When healthy, his production jumps off the page. A 128-tackle season, multiple sacks, forced fumbles, a game-clinching interception. He diagnoses plays quickly, shoots gaps with precision, and brings leadership qualities that elevate the entire unit. He called the defense in Philadelphia. He thrived in an aggressive front. In Parker's scheme, which demands linebackers who can run sideline to sideline and blitz effectively, Dean feels like a tailor-made fit. But injuries linger in the background. A torn patellar tendon, hamstring issues, foot problems. Pairing him with DeMarvion Overshown, who has his own injury history, creates volatility. That is why an incentive-laden contract structure becomes essential. Dallas has historically excelled at these deals. They protect the cap while rewarding availability and production. If structured correctly, Dean could be a calculated gamble rather than reckless spending. This is the moment in the offseason where Cowboys fans need to lock in. If you believe this team is truly turning a corner defensively, now is the time to stay engaged. Subscribe, follow, stay plugged in, because what happens over the next few weeks could define the trajectory of the franchise for years. While defense dominates the conversation, the tone at the top cannot be ignored. Brian Schottenheimer's leadership style has drawn praise across the building. Will McClay described his approach as uniquely collaborative. In a league where many head coaches rule with rigidity, Schottenheimer invites feedback. He processes criticism. He adjusts without surrendering authority. That balance is rare. The offense appears stable. George Pickens is tagged and likely headed toward a long-term extension. Brandon Aubrey is expected to be secured. Javonte Williams has already been re-signed. With Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and an established core intact, the offensive ceiling remains high. The real swing factor is whether Parker can repair a defense that surrendered over 30 points per game. Development will matter just as much as acquisitions. Siobhan Revel Jr. represents a fascinating test case. After an ACL tear in a rocky debut season where he allowed a 126.1 passer rating when targeted, he now enters year 2 under a coordinator known for molding young defensive backs. The internal buzz suggests optimism. If Revel makes a sophomore leap, that reduces the urgency at corner and allows draft capital to be allocated elsewhere. And then there is the blockbuster possibility that refuses to disappear, Max Crosby. Rich Eisen has openly encouraged Dallas to pursue a trade, even if it costs the 12th overall pick. Pairing Crosby with Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark would instantly transform the defensive line into a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. Crosby's 69.5 sacks since 2019 speak to sustained elite production. The question becomes philosophical. Do you spend premium draft capital on a proven star entering his prime, or do you trust the draft pipeline to deliver cheaper, younger talent? The salary cap gymnastics suggest the Cowboys are preparing for flexibility. Restructuring Dak Prescott, Tyler Smith, and CeeDee Lamb created massive breathing room. They moved from being deeply over the cap to compliant in a matter of days. That is not accidental. That is positioning. Free agency itself requires perspective. Activity does not equal achievement. History shows that teams crowned winners in March often falter by December. Splashy signings generate headlines, but depth and durability win championships. The Cowboys must avoid chasing applause. They need functional contributors who raise the defensive floor. The draft could offer further strategic maneuvering. Trading down from 12 to acquire additional day 2 capital has real merit. Landing Dylan Thieneman at 16 while adding extra picks could balance present needs with future stability. Doubling up in the secondary with a corner like Avion Terrell compounds the effect. Suddenly, the back end transforms from weakness to strength in one weekend. Everything circles back to alignment. Schottenheimer's culture, Parker's scheme, financial flexibility, draft capital, targeted aggression, and free agency. If these elements synchronize, the Cowboys could pivot from mediocrity to contention faster than many expect. But this is Dallas. Expectations are never modest. The fan base does not celebrate incremental progress. They demand relevance deep into January. And relevance begins now. As free agency opens and the draft approaches, every decision carries weight. Releasing Malik Hooker, structuring Nakobe Dean's contract, evaluating Max Crosby's trade cost, betting on Siobhan Revel's development. These are not isolated moves. They are interconnected threads in a larger tapestry. If the Cowboys get this offseason right, the narrative changes. The defense regains credibility. The offense maintains firepower. The locker room rallies around a coach who listens and adapts. And the NFC landscape suddenly looks navigable. If you believe in this transformation, if you want to track every move, every rumor, every strategic pivot, make sure you're locked in. Stay subscribed. Stay engaged. Because the 2026 Dallas Cowboys will be defined by what happens right now, and you won't want to miss a second of it.